Before I begin, I want to come clean. I have 3 confessions to make.
Ooh, confessions. Sounds scandalous. I am all ears.
Number 1, when I introduce myself to white folks, I get a kick out of it.
When you introduce yourself to white folks. So, whatever you're about to tell us is inherent to skin color? Got it.
Well, let me tell you why. Usually the conversation goes something like, "Hi, my name is Javier. It's very nice to meet you." And they will respond something like, "Hello, my name is so-and-so," Cameron probably. And they will say, "Wow, Javier, where are you from, man?" Thinking that I'm going to tell him or her an exotic place far, far away where they can vacation.
Yes, I am sure this exchange happens so very, very often. And of course, when it does happen, you know what the other person is thinking. Because you're a mind reader of white folks. Got it.
And I respond, "I'm from Cranston, Rhode Island." To their disappointment, and looking at their disappointing face is priceless to me, and I get a kick out of it. I'm sorry.
Yes, I can tell that you are very, very sorry.
Confession number 2. The movie In Time, featuring Justin Timberlake, is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Now, I'm not sure that there is enough penance in the world to cleanse yourself of that sin.
I was thinking to myself while watching the movie, like, wow, the concept of people having this time clock in their inner arm and the clock timing down to 0, and then you automatically collide and die. I know, it's really dark. On September 5th, the Trump administration and Jeff Sessions rescinded the DACA program, which put a time clock on 800,000 people across the United States.
Yes, Trump ended a program that was not passed by Congress, but instead put into place by executive order. And Trump rescinded that executive order with the very same authority. He then put the task to Congress to pass legitimate legislation on the matter within 6 months' time. The DREAM Act has been sitting in limbo for years now. Congress just needs to vote on it, because that's their job.
My third confession, I am a DACA recipient myself.
Oh, so when you tell white folks that you're from Rhode Island because you get a kick out of their reactions, you're not telling the whole truth. Rhode Island is not your place of birth or your point of origin. Got it.
For those who know me and didn't know that about me, surprise. For those who don't know what the program is, it stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And it was made for people like myself who were brought here when they were children. It was signed on by President Obama in 2012 through an executive order with obviously requirements. First requirement was that you had to be in the country before you were 16. Second, that you had to hold a high school diploma or a GED. Third requirement was that you had to have a clean background, no criminal records.
Yes, and all of that is essentially the same as is held in the DREAM Act, which Congress had not voted on, so Obama went around our legislative process and created new law by presidential fiat. And the chance of it remaining in place was as tenuous as the discretion of whomever succeeded Obama in the office. And so, here we are.
I was one of those people. And this program gave you a piece of paper. This piece of paper was a work authorization that you can renew for 2 years. Now, I tell you that story about my introduction is because I feel like a true Rhode Islander.
I am glad that you feel that way, but feelings do not equate to lawful citizenship. And it is indeed a shame that your parents knowingly put you into legal peril all those years ago.
I graduated from Edgewood Elementary School. I went to Parkview Middle School. I went to Cranston High School East. I graduated from the Community College of Rhode Island. I went to Rhode Island College. I now go to Brown University.
And good for you. Credit where credit is due. But that does not change the laws by which you and I are subject to. That's the job of the legislative branch, who had no part in putting DACA into place.
But yeah, so I truly feel like a Rhode Islander, and I don't need a piece of paper to tell me that I'm not.
I think our speaker meant to say that he doesn't need a piece of paper to tell him that he is a Rhode Islander. But either way, unfortunately, you do need pieces of paper, specifically citizenship papers, to be a Rhode Islander or a resident of any other state legally.
Before 2012, I was just a regular kid. This picture is actually the first time I stepped into Rhode Island, and this is the first time where I understood my realities. I knew that I was in a foreign place, but I was with my family, and I was ready, to make it happen.
Right. You were brought into this country illegally, and I am sure with the best of intentions by your parents. But it was, and still is, a crime.
What this picture doesn't tell you is that 4 days before this picture was taken, I was stranded in the middle of Ciudad Juarez, the most dangerous city in the world, surrounded by drug dealers, prostitutes, gang members, kidnappers. I was trying to cross the border.
And who put you, a minor child, into that dangerous situation in the first place, might I ask?
If you want to get that story out of me, you might have to buy me a couple beers. But for the sake of time, my father and I made it over the border very safely, and our journey began from New Mexico to Providence in one Greyhound bus, one trip.
Yes. Applaud the act of illegally transporting a minor across state lines after as well entering the country illegally. It is truly something to celebrate and to encourage.
As I went through the education system here in Rhode Island, I understood that my path was going to be a little bit different. My undocumentedness didn't really set in into my senior year of high school, where people were applying to college and looking for jobs. I knew that I had to be different, and seeing how I couldn't drive, seeing how I couldn't obviously I couldn't get a license, so I couldn't work, I had to take things into my own hands and start getting creative.
Getting creative. When you could not legally drive, work, or apply to college without formal identification, you got creative. Go on.
I started working under the table gigs. I did some construction work. I worked at this beautiful food truck. The ironic thing about this food truck is that I couldn't even drive it. So I was just the cook, and that's the best part of it, right?
Right?
But I saved enough money for me to go back to college because I knew that education was the one thing that was going to raise my family from the financial burden that we have as first generation. And I was able to do that. I went to community college in Rhode Island, I graduated, and I got an associate's degree in general studies with a path to Rhode Island College.
So you worked under the table and paid no income taxes or Social Security so you could attend a community college, which is funded in part by the taxpayer. Got it.
And this is all great, but how was I going to save up more money to go and graduate from Rhode Island College? So I had to drop out and go back to the food truck.
It sounds like it was a difficult decision, and a great inconvenience for you, your family, and your future. If only your parents had played by the rules in the first place.
After 2012 happened, obviously it was a game changer. This presidential executive order was built exactly for me.
And pressed into existence without congressional involvement or consent.
And I was the first person that got in line and got my paperwork, my piece of paper. With that piece of paper, I ran to the DMV, got my driver's license. I got it at 23 when I should have gotten it at 16.
No, you should get your driver's license when you are legally qualified to do so. And for you, that was at 23, not 16.
I put on a suit and I went to my first interview where I got the job at this mortgage company in Middletown called Linear. This company had a 401k, insurance, a good paying salary, sick days, vacation days, things that I had never had in my life. And it was great.
Sounds good. And I am glad that our speaker was able to attain legitimate employment. But again, his ability to do all of these things existed only at the pleasure of the individual sitting in the Oval Office at the time. Because there was always a countdown timer. Because DACA was not a law passed by Congress. And I am curious, if DACA had not happened, what was our speaker's plan for the future?
In those 4 years, I was able to save enough money to return to Rhode Island College and pay for my tuition. And I'm very proud to say that I graduated May of this year and became the first person in my family, and my family tree, nevertheless, to graduate from a 4-year institution.
Congratulations. And I do mean that sincerely.
Although this piece of paper changed my life, and legislation comes and goes, executive orders come and go.
Legislation doesn't come and go with nearly as much swiftness as an executive order can. That's because legislation requires a consensus of Congress, whereas an executive order rests on one person's mood at the time.
The one thing that's constant in my life is the support of my parents.
Your parents, who are still in the country illegally and for whom DACA or the DREAM Act will provide no protection.
Congressmen and senators are trying to explain that this was not my fault because I was a child and I had no say on my parents bringing me. And they're putting the blame on my parents. And I completely disagree with that.
You disagree that your parents knowingly put your welfare at risk by bringing you and themselves into this country illegally. You disagree that the hardships of not being a legal citizen that you have just described to us were not the direct consequence of your parents' actions. You disagree that your remaining in this country, should DACA lapse and the DREAM Act not be passed, is not at stake because of your parents' choices. Got it.
They are the original dreamers. I am a result of their sacrifice. And
they are the original dreamers. What does that mean? They weren't brought here as children. They crossed the border as adults. You are a result of their sacrifice. What sacrifice? You were brought here when you were 12, weren't you? What happened 12 years before you were born that was a sacrifice? Or do you count your parents breaking the law and putting you and themselves in legal peril as a sacrifice? Because, given your tales of hardship, I think you have been paying for your parents' crime all of your life.
anyone's going to blame anyone, let's bring Congress. If this is so important, it's a top priority. We have a time clock right now to go and make this change for these people and maybe bring them back into the fold, right?
Right?
Well, on that point, I do agree. It is Congress's responsibility to give the DREAM Act an up or down vote and be done with it, to make it a law rather than a policy of administrative temperament. And I hope they do. I think consideration should be afforded to kids who were unwillingly and/or unwittingly made a part of their parents' criminal actions. And we have a process to make such dispensations a matter of law. But until they are law, our speaker's residency legitimately remains in jeopardy.
My dream began in this Greyhound bus, half a mile away from this building, over there by the Dunkin' Donuts Center. Back then was the convention center. But also, my reality began, right?
Right?
I knew that I was brought here and I had a purpose. The purpose to bring my community up from poverty, my family up in the American social ladder, and help those who feel the same way along the way.
That sounds more like a self-imposed purpose, as you and your parents were not supposed to be in this country in the first place. Now, I can imagine that the situation in Mexico was far worse than what was promised in America, as far as your family's prospects were concerned. So, I am curious, with this newfound sense of purpose in improving people's lives, why not go back to Mexico to try and make it a place where other families and other children will not feel the need to break international laws to escape from?
Now, obviously, my dreams are becoming real. However, people think that, wow, you've done so many things. You should be happy. I am happy, but that's not the end for me. I have even bigger dreams. My dream is to go to law school and become an attorney. And not just any mediocre law school. I want to go to Harvard or Yale or Stanford because I know that after I get one of those degrees, I'm going to be able to put real change into this broken immigration system.
What change? How is it broken? Your parents spat in the face of our immigration system to bring you here. If they never even bothered to abide by our immigration laws, then yes, those laws are broken. Because your parents and people like your parents broke them.
We're striving for this utopian future where everyone gets along and immigration is not an issue.
Immigration is not an issue. So, what? As a Stanford-educated lawyer, you're going to try and do away with the concept of nations and borders?
Good luck.
And we want to help everyone. At least that's what I've seen you folks here. However, I have also seen the hatred, the malice that these people now feel that they have the power to do, right?
Right?
To come out of the shadows and call me illegal, that I shouldn't be here, that I don't pay taxes, that I should be happy that I'm getting this piece of paper.
You are here illegally. That is a fact, and one forced upon you by your parents, whether you agree with that notion or not. You told us you earned all of your initial college money by working under the table. So, you didn't pay taxes during that time. And were you not happy to get that piece of paper? The one that let you get your driver's license and get a job and go to college? Either I must be missing something, or our speaker is denying the reality of his own story.
And I just want to clear some misconceptions. I do pay taxes.
Well, now you do pay taxes, certainly.
I wish I had a picture of of my income tax up there, but I mean, if Donald Trump can't do it, what should I? Um, I have been trying to contribute to my hometown, to my state, and to my country ever since I stepped foot of that Greyhound bus.
You didn't pay any income taxes until 2012. You and your parents have been living in violation of federal law since you arrived here. Please tell me how breaking the laws of this country thus contributes to the betterment of this country.
Because my community has shaped me to be a presentable man and a person to not let obstacles ruin my dreams.
You can present yourself however you like, and your personal accomplishments, in spite of the obstacles put before you by your parents' bad actions, are laudable. But that does not change the reality of your situation now or in years past.
All my friends, although mostly white,
That's an odd turn of phrase. And there's that whole skin color thing again.
they're hustlers, they're go-getters. I learned from them.
So you learned valuable lessons from your go-getter friends, even if they are mostly white. Got it.
I'm not gonna let one piece of paper hold me back of what I really want to do.
Well, you see, that is not up to you. Because unless the DREAM Act is passed, or Trump decides to retain or change the executive order in some way, what will be holding you up from your dreams will likely be ICE agents.
And although this program is over, I stand with you today to raise awareness for those people. And I ask you to stand in solidarity with those 800,000 people and those 11 million people that are also being ignored right now.
Those 11 million people. What 11 million people? Do you mean the 11 million people for whom DACA and the DREAM Act don't apply? The 11 million people of adult and knowing age who entered and reside in this country illegally? They ignored the laws of this country and cheated the system we have in place to attain citizenship legally. A system, I might add, that people in my own life adhered to and did the work and made the sacrifices to become official U.S. citizens. Why should 11 million lawbreakers be given for free what so many others have had to work for?
Today, you will hear people speak about remembering the past, taking action in the present for a utopian future that we all want to see. After listening to my story and understanding how it has impacted my life and other 800,000 people, I ask you, when does this futuristic, utopian place start?
It doesn't. We all strive to form a more perfect union, but a utopia is a fiction. And look at all of the attempts to legislate utopia from world history, and then tell us, what were the results there?
Does it begin after I leave this red carpet? Does it begin when you leave this building? When does this utopian future that we're working so hard for begin? Thank you.
Okay, to reiterate, I think that Congress should vote on the DREAM Act as soon as possible. Obama's executive order dangled the carrot of a better life in front of 800,000 people, a carrot he hung from the barest of threads. And Obama bet on his presumed successor upholding that order for the long term. But he bet wrong. Now Congress has the chance to do its job and provide a pathway to citizenship for those who are the victims of their parents' crimes. However, it would seem that our speaker wants to have his cake and eat it too. He wants Congress and the president to create laws that benefit him, his family, and his community. And yet, he avoids acknowledging the legitimacy of the very laws in our Constitution that he and members of his family have violated and are in violation of at this very moment. I really do hope that our speaker's accomplishments and good works will not go to waste, and that he is allowed to remain in this country legitimately. But being a true Rhode Islander, being a true American, means that you both work hard and follow the rules. The rest of us have to. Why shouldn't he? As always, thank you for watching.